Hello, this is a little summary of our core community discussion from Thursday evening. It was on John chapter 10. Now John chapter 10 has got two main sections. The longest one is about the Good Shepherd, and then after that is continued conflict over Jesus' claims. The Good Shepherd, we looked at the Greek word for good, which is kalos, K-A-L-O-S. It means beautiful or good, attractive, good that inspires or motivates others to embrace what is lovely, beautiful or praiseworthy. Well done so as to be winsome, appealing. The word appears 101 times in the New Testament, so very common word. In Wikipedia, I found there's a Greek phrase called kalos kagathos, K-A-L-O-S, which is the word for good that we're looking at, and K-A-G-A-T-H-O-S, which together denotes basically like a gentlemanly ideal, maybe like the ancient Greek equivalent of the sort of chivalrous knight or something like that. It can be used in a military context. So the first word kalos, as I said, is beautiful, and kagathos is good or virtuous. And there's a scholar called Werner Jaeger who says that it was the chivalrous ideal of the complete human personality, harmonious in mind and body, foursquare in battle and speech, song and action. Now, there's a lot of characters in the story of the Good Shepherd, and I think sometimes it can get a bit confusing when you get these different characters. You think, oh, who are these different people? But I don't think actually it's too bad. Jesus appears as the shepherd. He says in verse 11, I am the Good Shepherd. He also appears as the gatekeeper, or the gate. In verse 9 he says, I am the gate. So you can have people appearing more than once in the analogy. There's another two characters, the thief and the robber. The thief and the robber. So thief is kleptes. I assume that's where kleptomania comes from. A thief who steals by stealth in secret rather than openly with violence. Although verse 10 does say that the thief comes to steal and kill and destroy. So possibly also a bit of a violent thief. The robber is the Greek word lestes, and that means stealing in the open, typically with violence. It could mean a bandit, a brigand, someone who plunders and pillages, an unscrupulous marauder or malefactor. So those who come to the thief and the robber, obviously these are people who attack the flock, who want like bad things for the flock. And the book of John, the Gospel of John, was written at the time when the Christians, or the Jewish Christians, were being sent out of the synagogue. And we already see in the book of Acts quite a lot of antagonism between the Jews and the Christians. Quite often in Acts, Paul or the apostles will go to the synagogue. They'll tell the Jews there about Jesus. Often they then meet with a kind of a bad response. Maybe one or two might be interested, but on the whole, the Jews don't believe what they say and usually make trouble for them. And then what usually happens is they then go and talk to the Gentiles, and they get a much better reception from the Gentiles. So this seems to be like a common pattern in Acts. And when the Gospel of John was written, this sort of thing was going on, where there was antagonism between Jewish Christians and the regular Jews. And in fact, in the Roman Empire, Jews were not required to swear, to kind of worship the emperor. They were exempt from emperor worship. And towards the end of the first century, they kind of disowned the Christians. So to start with, because Christianity was kind of seen as a kind of like a Jewish sect, or a Jewish set of beliefs, they were kind of protected by this. But when the Jewish authorities said the Christians aren't Jews, then the Christians lost that protection, and that ended up obviously in some persecution where Christians wouldn't worship the emperor, and so they would be persecuted because of that. And so really the thief and the robber, those who want bad things for the flock, would probably be represented, probably by the Jewish authorities at the time. Obviously it's just anyone that was causing the Christians trouble, which as we know from Acts, isn't just the Jews. It could have been the Romans as well. The main image that I get from the story of the Good Shepherd is of Jesus leading the flock. I think sometimes we kind of think of it in quite a passive way, of just there's a pasture and Jesus is kind of keeping the flock safe. He's the gate and he won't let people in, and if people do get in, then they're robbers and bandits and so on that don't want good things for the sheep. But I kind of got this image of Jesus kind of calling the Christians, the sheep, sort of after him. And of course, in the early church, when there was persecution in Jerusalem, the Jewish Christians were kind of sent out. And I feel that the overall message of the Good Shepherd is Jesus saying, look, if you're getting in trouble, if you're being persecuted, if bad things are happening to you, I'm leading you to a safe place. I'm taking you to a good pasture. You'll know my voice. I'm leading ahead. Follow me, and I will take you out of this bad situation. So whether it's Jews from Christians from the first century, or Christians today, if we're in a difficult situation, I think the story of the Good Shepherd is of Jesus helping us to get out of the bad situation and into a good place. This is actually the bit that says, the bit of the Bible that talks about abundant life. I have come that you have life and have it more abundantly. So it's really like a promise of abundance and flourishing, and through the Spirit, Christians will hear from Jesus what to do, how to get out of bad situations, and they will be protected. There's a couple of other characters actually. Oh yeah, John 10:10. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. And the word, Greek word there is peristos, meaning abundantly, more than what was anticipated, exceeding expectations, more than enough. And so it's a song called More Than Enough. So the hired hand, someone who will not protect the sheep. He will run away if the sheep are attacked. And the wolf is another character that's mentioned, one who attacks the sheep and scatters them. So we can see the wolf as someone who's persecuting the church. The hired hand maybe is someone who appears to be friendly, but when trouble comes, they make their excuses and leave. And also this is where Jesus says, I have other sheep. So this is usually taken as a reference to the Gentiles. So the original sheep were the Jewish Christians. Christianity seen as something coming out of Judaism, but because of the success of Christianity amongst the Gentiles, this is why he says I have sheep in another fold, because it's not just the Jews that Jesus is promising salvation to and eternal life, but of course plenty of Gentiles accept that Jesus is the Messiah as well. So the important thing is that the sheep know Jesus' voice. There's actually stories of shepherds where sheep are all like sheep from different shepherds are all kind of kept together in a field, and then the shepherd will just call, and his sheep or her sheep will come and follow that shepherd because they know the voice of their shepherd. So that is a real thing apparently that happens, that sheep do know the voice of the shepherd, and so this is the the moving the dynamic of the story, that if the sheep are in trouble or the sheep are in danger, Jesus will move ahead and call to the sheep will know his voice, they will go to the place that Jesus wants them to go to. So if you're in a bad place, Jesus through the Spirit will tell you how to get to the good place. Now the second part of the of chapter 10 is with a festival of dedication. Now this is Hanukkah, and it's the only mention of Hanukkah in the Bible. Verse 22 talks about the festival of dedication, and Hanukkah isn't even in the Old Testament because it's a celebration of the Jews actually overthrowing the Greek occupation. So before the Romans came, Israel was occupied by the Greeks. They kind of took over, I think, it's like the Babylonians, and was it the Assyrians first, then the Babylonians, then Medes and Persians, and finally the Medes and Persians were driven out and replaced by the Greeks. So Israel had been occupied for quite some time. Certainly, the Old Testament ends with Israel occupied, so that's about 400 BCE, and the Maccabean rebellion overthrew the Greeks. So this was like an amazing thing, that finally Israel had got back to being a self-governing nation again. So this, as a result of being able to overthrow the oppression of the Greeks, and the Greek guy at the time was really trying to actively destroy Judaism. I was just trying to think of his name. It's something like, it's got Epiphanes or something like that in his name, and but he forbade Jewish men to be circumcised. I think he had like pigs being sacrificed in the temple, just doing anything he could to destroy Judaism. So it was so extreme that it resulted in this uprising, and the Maccabees overthrew the Greeks. And so this is Hanukkah, Festival of Lights. So it's sort of the closest the Jews have, obviously, to Christmas. Often we hear about Hanukkah about the same time as Christmas. And it says in the Gospel that this was winter, so that was when they were celebrating it. Verse 28, Jesus says, "No one will snatch them out of my hand," sort of a promise of looking after his followers. It's an image of Jesus. There's a lot of images of kind of protection and care. No one will snatch them out of my hand. My sheep know my voice. Jesus is the good, the beautiful, the amazing shepherd that is going to care for those who follow him. Also, it's an interesting verse 8, just going back a little bit. "All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them." I'm guessing that would be false messiahs. Obviously it's not all that had gone before, because the Old Testament had gone before, but it would have been, there was a lot of expectation of a new Messiah to come and overthrow the Romans. The Romans had obviously put paid to an independent Israel, having been freed themselves from the Greeks. They then were under the oppression of the Romans, but they were looking for a new leader, a new Maccabean rebellion, just the same as they overthrew the Greeks. They thought, well, maybe we can overthrow the Romans, but I think verse 8 is kind of referring to kind of false leaders who were not sent from God, really. So primarily, I think, chapter 10, it's about a time of moving on, just the same way as in the Exodus. God moved ahead of the children of Israel in the fire and in the cloud, the fire at night and the cloud during the day. I see Jesus as the Good Shepherd, leading Christians to a place of safety, place of abundance, the whole abundant life thing, and no one will snatch them out of my hand, promising care and protection. So yes, that's John chapter 10, Good Shepherd and Hanukkah. Right, thank you very much.